So we started the morning hearing Sonia's talk. And this last session is all about that patient perspective. We're going to begin that with Victoria Gray, who was the first patient to treat her own cells, to edit them, and to cure herself of a genetic disease, in this case, sickle cell disease. And when I first heard Victoria talk, it was both eye-opening, just to understand all the challenges that she overcome, and also inspiring and truly motivating. So we're going to do a fireside chat, but first I'm just going to give you the chance to hear from Victoria herself, let her tell her story, and then we'll have a few questions just at the end. So with that, please welcome Victoria Gray.
Well, hopefully I can bring genetic agency all together for you guys by sharing my journey. So my journey with sickle cell disease began at the age of 3 months. My mom, she was giving her first baby girl a nighttime bath in October, and I began to cry. Her initial thought was that she just had bumped my shoulder that was dislocated at birth. So she took me to the ER thinking it was to be a simple fix. But when she gets there, she finds out that her daughter has sickle cell disease, she's having her first crisis, and that she may only live to see 7 years old. So that was just the beginning of my journey. My earliest memory with sickle cell disease is at the age of 4. I was in pre-K. I had been at school, and I was just excited to come home so I can go outside and play with my best friend, Candace. But as I entered my grandmother's house to change my clothes, because she wouldn't let me play in the nice stuff, I get this lightning-type pain that hits me in one arm, travels across my chest, down the other arm, and within a matter of minutes, I was to the floor, crying. My body was fully engulfed in pain. My grandmother tried the routines that the doctor said, hot towels, grabbed the Tylenol 3s, nothing worked. So that meant for me having to go to the hospital, be inpatient for over a week, receive IV blood transfusions, IV pain medicines, and still be in some of the worst pain that a child should never have to experience. Even after that stay, I would have an extra week or so at home away from school, just recovering. Because living with sickle cell disease, life itself is a trigger. Changing weather is a trigger, stress is a trigger, exertion is a trigger. So what can I do? My earliest dream, middle school, started, they had a mini cheerleading team. I was excited about that team. I wanted to be a part of it. So I go to my hematologist and say, I want to be on the cheerleading team. And I hear, no, Victoria, that exertion can send you into crisis, so you can't do that. So I move on, still a dreamer. My biggest journey was in books, because I could get taken away in a book and read about all the things that I couldn't do in real life. So my imagination was my journey. Moving on to 8th grade, I had the height. I was taller than all the boys. So everyone was like, Vicky, you don't have to play basketball. And so me just wanting to be a part of a team, I went to my hematologist again. I want to play basketball. Can you clear me to do that? No, Victoria. The exercise, the exertion, it can cause harm. You'll be in the hospital. You can't do it. So I move on, and I graduate high school, and I sign up for the United States Navy. As I'm about to leave, my recruiter gets a call. Victoria doesn't qualify because she has sickle cell disease. So every dream had started to get crushed, but I was young, so I didn't give up on dreaming. If I couldn't be in the Navy, at least I could be a doctor. I wanted to be a cardiologist and heal hearts, because my grandmother, who had been a mom to me, passed away when I was 14 years old from a heart attack. So I enter college, and I'm with my advisor, and she's running down all the courses I would need to be a doctor. So she discourages me because she knows of my disease. That would be too much stress, Victoria. Long hours. So I advise you not to become a doctor. So I have to dial back again, and I pursue nursing. I graduated high school and entered college in 2003. It took 2010 before I could even qualify for nursing course, because I would have to start and stop because I would have crises in the fall. But in 2010, while on fall break, I would have one of the worst crises in my life. This crisis would take away completely my ability to use my arms, use my legs. I was bound to a hospital bed. I couldn't even lift a fork to feed myself. I was 100% relying on the hospital staff. I was in the hospital from mid-October 2010 to mid-January 2011. I missed my kid's birthday, December 15th. I missed Thanksgiving. I missed Christmas. I missed New Year's, and I missed my twins' birthday, which is January 8th. I was in the hospital during their birthdays, learning to walk again, learning to use my hands. So I gave up on any and all dreams that I ever had and decided I'm just gonna be a good mom, good wife. I was getting married in 2011, but sickle cell would make that a challenge. I would oftentimes get swept away from my kids in the middle of the night and get phone calls saying, Mama, I was crying last night, and this is my daughter. And I said, Jadeja, why were you crying? I saw the ambulance take you away, and I wasn't sure if you was gonna come back. I had stigma attached to my disease, so I wasn't a child anymore, so the 5-minute waits that I had as a kid turned into 6 to 12-hour waits in the ER and watch women walk in with pink eye and get called to the back before me. Sickle cell didn't affect my outward appearance, so no one believed that I was in pain. And that caused me to get mistreated oftentimes by the hands of nurses and the ones that were supposed to care for me. One day I was in the hospital. It was the 4th of July. I remember it because I had planned with my mom to buy these jumper, bouncy houses, swimming pools, so my kids could enjoy the holiday. But instead, I was inpatient in some of the worst pain of my life. My doctor got me on a regimen. I started to improve. But it was time for my medication. I called the nurse in, who I knew because she worked in the ER. She was doing registration at first. So I was happy that she was a nurse now. So I asked her, can I sit up, because I was tired of being in the bed. So she assists me to sit in the chair, and she gives me my pain medicine. I immediately get so dizzy that I fall over, and she has to assist me to get back in the bed, and I fall asleep. When I wake up, it's like crisis day 1 all over again. I was set back. I didn't understand what was going on. I call in the room, and I call for pain medicine, and when she comes in, she's like, Victoria, how are you? I said, I don't know what's going on. I thought I was getting better. Maybe the medicine not working for me. What's gonna happen to me now? And she's like, oh, well, it's been about 10 hours since I gave you something for pain. I said, no, 5 hours ago you gave me something for pain. She's like, that wasn't pain medicine. I gave you a high dose of phenergan because I just wanted to see what that was gonna do. So she gave me a dose that patients can't even have of medication that wasn't prescribed to me. She sedated me, so she didn't have to deal with me, and she didn't really believe my pain was real. So when I made the report, what I hear back from the head of nursing is, oh, we're not gonna let her treat you anymore, but we don't feel that she did it maliciously. So I'm still in the hospital a few days later, and the hospital is short on staff. Guess who enters my room again? The same nurse that experimented on me. So I have to make a call to my husband who's deployed, a call to my mom, and ask them to make me a promise. If I die in the hospital, will you get an autopsy? Because the body would be no longer of use to me. I won't feel the pain, but I want you to know that it may not be sickle cell disease that killed me. I may very well die at the hands of a nurse. So that added an extra fear and broken trust. And that was just one of many events that I experienced as a sickle cell patient. Dealing with all that caused me to pray to God and say, God, if you love me, when I lay down tonight, you would let me die. You would give me the peace in heaven, because I'm tortured every day by a disease that no one believes is real. The people that you put in place and blessed with knowledge, they're causing me hurt and pain. They're mistreating me. They're experimenting on me. I just want to die. And I kept that mindset. My health had declined to a point where I was in heart failure. I needed a personal care assistant in my home 8 hours a day, 7 days a week to assist me with a bath, because something as simple as a bath would cause heart palpitations and sweats. I would be too weak to do laundry, too weak to cook. I couldn't even make my kids' bed. And life was lonely and hard. But it wasn't until I get this phone call from my son, Jamaria's teacher. He's in about 6th grade at the time in middle school. I had been getting calls that he was acting out, but she called me, she wanted to meet in person. And I go up there, leave my walker in the car. And she said, Miss Gray, I know why Jamarius is acting out. And I said, why is it? She looks me in my eyes and say, Jamarius is trying to get suspended and kicked out of school because he's afraid that you're gonna die and he won't be home to save you. I had tried to convince myself in my head that my kids would be okay if I died. My husband would get a new wife, they'll have a stepmom, they'll be fine. But here my son was literally and physically fighting for me to live. So my prayer changed. God, if you would give me something that would allow me to live long enough to see my kids grow up, so they can have families of their own, so my death won't impact them enough, I'll be happy to cross over after that. So my next crisis flare, I'm back in the hospital, ketamine in one arm, Dilaudid in the other, still in the worst pain of my life, can't walk again, I'm in a diaper because it hurts to even lift my hips up to get on a bedpan. I call in the head of hematology at the major hospital in Mississippi, the hospitalists, the nursing staff, all in my room, and I ask, is there anything that you guys know that can help me? I said, I read an article, a young lady received a bone marrow transplant and she was better. Do you know anything about that? They looked at one another, looked back at me, and said no. So I went back to my roots. My grandmother taught me that God had the last say. So I prayed to God continuously for an answer. Then I get a call that a doctor named Dr. Hadar Frangul had reached out to my hematologist and asked if she had any patients that was willing to undergo bone marrow transplant. So I traveled 5.5 hours away from my home to Tennessee to meet Dr. Frangul. And he says to me, Victoria, I wish I would have met you 10 years ago. I could have been helping you. That was a turning point in my life because he was the first and only doctor in my adult life that was willing to join in the fight with me. While I was testing, my brother was a match, but I feared graft versus host disease, but I still was moving forward because I just had to do something, not for myself, but for my kids' sake. So I have a crisis while there. Dr. Frangul goes into action, and I learn. He approaches my bedside and tells me that they're about to start this clinical trial, CRISPR. He explains that it'd be like going into a textbook with thousands and thousands of words, finding one word that's misspelled, correcting that word without disrupting the story. So for me, CRISPR would possibly turn back on my hemoglobin F production that all babies have, and it could cut my crisis in half. So I had 2 questions. Was there a chance of graft versus host disease? No, because the cells would be my own. And if it failed, because I'm patient 1, would I still be able to move forward with bone marrow transplant with my brother? And he reassured me that after a year, genetic agency, that if it failed, I had another option. So I moved forward in faith, and in 2019, I became the first patient to receive CRISPR gene editing. July 2nd is the day that my super cells were infused. It's a day that I cried. Nothing had changed, but it was hope on the horizon for me. Finally, a therapy tailored to sickle cell disease. We usually get the side effects of like, oh, hydroxyurea was supposed to treat cancer, but it can work for sickle cell disease. But finally, a therapy that's tailored just for me. 7 to 8 months later, after I made it home, I went to bed, I tapered off all the drugs, went through withdrawal. I wake up one morning, my room is extra bright, it's quiet in the house. I sit up and I don't feel anything. I panic. I said, oh my God, I'm dead. I began to pinch my face, I pinched my thighs. But I was like, I must be like Casper. I don't want to leave these kids. So I called the kids in the room, and they come in. They're like, Mama, what's wrong? I said, nothing. I just want to feel you. Give them a hug and send them out. And I said, oh, my God, this is what normal feels like. It was the first time for me in over 20 years that I didn't wake up with the lower pain in my back and hips that had plagued me majority of my life. I used to shallow breathe because deep breathing hurt, but that day my breath was going all the way down and out without restriction or pain. I began to test my limits. I ran in the yard with my boys. I fell because I have no athletic experience. But it didn't end with me having to get rushed away from my kids for a month, 2 months, 3 months. It ended with laughter, joy. And I was able to keep my promise to God that, Lord, if you let this work for me, I'll tell the world about what you did. I thought it would be my small world, but I get the invite to 2023, 23, to the 3rd International Summit on Human Genome Editing to share my journey with the world. So I was intrigued and listening at a table when the question was, what do you share about patients' death? And as a patient, I believe that you should share everything because we're more than just a patient, we're people. When I left my kids with my mom to go to Nashville, I promised them that I would come home. So that's the most important thing about these therapies. That's the goal, is to get your patient, your partner, back home, to get them back to society and sustain life. Yes, I know it's a possibility that we may die. I knew that going in. But transparency is the best policy. When Dr. Frank Gould presented CRISPR to me, he didn't make promises, but I was still all in because I had a partner that was willing to walk through that thing with me. So that's the most important part about my journey and about genetic agency, is we're all working together as partners to bring access and to empower patients. And to do that, patients need the right and accurate information. Thank you.